Hey guys, so I had a question on YouTube and it's about losing. So let's explore this a little bit because I think it's a very cool topic of discussion. And it is from Alex, and it was 6 months ago. 6 months ago. Thank you, Alex. So he says, what I in the community wants to hear is how you deal with losing. We need a mindset that gives us reasons to play no matter what or how much we lose games. You shouldn't have to feel like quitting a game every now and then because you got some troll in the pug. Hit me with anything. I've lost motivation to play CSGO, League of Legends, Smite, fucking Rocket League because of dumb trolls or annoying ass people. I feel you, Mr. Alex. I frequently run into annoying ass people. So this is pretty cool because I've touched on quite a few things with this topic in the past. So I've good mental practices, let's say. So there's a video about how to deal with anger, which is a commonly experienced a negative emotion, which is elicited in the case of losing or frustration from playing with, trolls or idiots or whatever it might be. And so that video is there. It's one of the more recent ones I've done. There's a video on good practices for approaching the game from a practice perspective, practice study review, I think it might be called, which is kind of my three tenets, basically, the three pillars of improving. And I had a video also on outcome orientedness, and there's also a video on, I think, the champion's mindset and various things like that, which all can contribute to you having good mindsets. But the first thing I want to say, and I won't try to, also there's a video on acceptance, which is very important. We'll talk about that in a bit. But the first thing I want to say is that sometimes there's just nothing you can fucking do. Sometimes there's nothing you can do to not feel like shit. Sometimes it's just going to be shit. And that is something that we have to understand, because as many good practices as you might have, as zen as you might be, sometimes there's just nothing you can do, and you're a human being and you're going to feel like shit. And the best thing to do is to accept it, to practice acceptance there, because the sooner you can do that, the sooner those negative emotions will go away. The sooner you'll be able to cut your losses. The sooner you'll be able to get back into the game. And that's essentially what this question is about. Again, you shouldn't have to feel like quitting a game every now and then because you got a troll in the pug. So that's part of the question from Alex there. So it's very important to understand that. And even myself, I've got a lot of these good mental practices ingrained. I never get truly angry or raged in these games. There's some things that can piss me off, but it's very, very fleeting, and I can refocus quite quickly, generally speaking. But at the same time, if let's say my rating's tanking, like recently in Overwatch, I had 300 or 400 points just gone within a few hours because of playing with trolls and because of the variants. And it's just like one of those situations, and I knew all those things, but I actually figured out when I stopped playing, I was like, you know what? I actually feel like shit right now. And I was really surprised, because for me, that's very rare that happens. And, immediately, I realized that, I was just in this position whereby I had to just keep going. I had to just, move on with it, just accept it, and do some other things. And that is the first point here. You got to be able to practice acceptance in those situations. But to do so, you need to also try to develop some awareness, some sensitivity to your emotional states. And this is very important for performance, because you always want to be exercising good practice, right? And to exercise good practice, you need to have a positive mental environment, not a negative one. And you can rationalize things. You can actually trick yourself in so many ways on this, because, for example, you can use the concept of a good mental practice, which is not to be outcome oriented, and to accept that there is variance and that it evens out over time. And you can use that to justify your losses and kind of pretend almost that it's not affecting you. The thing is, though, is that it is affecting you. And in the back of your mind, in your subconscious, it is affecting you. This is a very common thing in poker. Again, people criticize me sometimes, I guess mostly just Dorian, for using some of the poker crossovers, but from a psychology perspective, there's so many very solid and directly applicable crossovers that I feel compelled to use them. So from this perspective of chasing losses in poker, you exercise a strategy over a sample size of 100,000 hands. That is an inconceivable number of instances of execution of a strategy. And this is something that is really, it's good because it gives us.
I can't find the answer to the question I heard.
Okay. Yes, I have an Amazon dot. Never mind. Moving on. I've muted it now. So yeah, so from us, from the 100,000 hands, that's where we were. So it's very cool to think of things like that, because it kind of allows you to think, okay, well, today I had all these bad results. Doesn't actually matter in the grand scheme of things. It's kind of like a month of games where the variance kind of evens out a little bit. I'm improving slowly as time goes on, and we can really see where I'm at. So that allows me to not really get pissed off with this one day of bad games or this week of bad games, because it's going to even out over time, right? But the thing is that in one session, your performance can drop massively because you have negative emotions going on, because you are being affected by loads of losses. One of the videos I made actually about outcome orientedness actually talks about this idea that, as in poker, you're going to portray this strategy that you're supposed to execute because you're like, fuck, I'm losing money. Your brain automatically makes you tighten up. And in game, what's going to happen is you're going to experience a lot of situations like serial failure, losing upon losing, and maybe even it's not you. Maybe you just don't know what it's like to kill somebody because your team is not putting you in a spot where that's happening very often. And so you don't get the confidence going. Some people are more confidence oriented than others, but it affects all of us. So if you're having serial losses, your confidence is going to be knocked, which is going to affect your ability to make or want to make certain plays, which you should make, but you need the confidence to execute. And then when you try to execute those plays, when you're not confident, because you're like, I know this is the right thing that I have to do, you're going to have a worse performance. So you're going to be in this more of a negative, almost self-fulfilling prophecy kind of emotional state that's going to hinder your performance. So from this perspective, it's very important to try to flag the mental bullshit that could be you rationalizing, with good concepts and applying them in an incorrect way to basically say, because I want to keep playing, I'm going to chase my losses. Never chase the losses. Never do that. It's not fun and it's not productive. You can do other things with your time, and that is something that you need to really think about. Generate that sensitivity for how you're actually feeling. It's very easy to let it get away from you, and then all of a sudden you'll be like, you'll stop playing and you'll be like, fuck, I'm really pissed off. I'm actually in a really shit mood now. That can happen to all of us. We're human beings. So that's the first thing there. And of course, and again, another thing on this topic actually. Now we talked about the acceptance, the sensitivity, and also rationalizing good concepts and putting them in places where they shouldn't be. There's something that I found really insightful that Flash said, the Brood War player, just yesterday when he was playing against Jadong. I think it was after he won, so sorry for the spoilers if you haven't seen it already. And they were asking Flash about C, who was waiting there in the final for him. And if you're familiar with Brood War, C was never like a super god tier level player. He's always a very good A-teamer, but he was never a super god tier level Terran. So the interviewer asked Flash, he's like, what is it about C that means that he's playing so well right now? And Flash said, and I think this is so insightful, he said, C's having fun with the game right now. That's basically what he said. Not verbatim, but that's basically what Flash said. And this is a very interesting idea, because for a lot of people, playing is work. For a lot of us who are seeking deep gratification from playing, we're looking for achievements. We're looking for the ability to get into that team that we want to join, or we want to get that results, either from a matchmaking perspective, from a ranking perspective or rating, or maybe it's to win a tournament or to win a local tournament, whatever it might be. There is achievement, and you're going to moderate have your success criteria be those certain results and goals. And so it takes a long time to get there. And so sometimes it's very easy to not have fun along that way. And again, talking about a positive mental space, trying to create an environment of having fun allows you greater creativity within the game. It allows you to hit the zone more easily because you're in more of a zone of comfort. Your brain's in more of a place where I'm so content with where I am right now. I'm not experiencing any frustration. The negative emotions which could come my way are being deflected because I am in this space where playing right now is fun, and this allows much more creative thought processes to happen. And in a game where if you're playing a lot, you have a lot of repetition, and that's a lot of the same logic patterns executed again and again and again. So creative thinking is what allows you to innovate, and to innovate is what allows you to grow and change in many respects. So what allows you to have the greater interest for your brain to be open to new decision-making processes, or to be able to pick up things better from a loss, or pick up things better from the study that you're doing. So it's very, I mean, for everybody, it's going to be different, finding a way to actually have fun with the game. So I'll give you some examples of ways that it works for me. I'm definitely kind of more, my outcome is more or less that I'm always doing something that is allowing me to improve. And that's kind of like me setting myself up to succeed as opposed to setting myself up for failure. Because what I'm basically doing is, again, my 3 pillars of improving at a video game. So I have 2 different 3 pillars, actually. I'm going to go through both of them right now because why not? So the 3 pillars here that I'm talking about is practice, review, and study. So practice is you actually doing the thing, right? So you're actually playing, making decisions, and performing mechanical execution. Then you have review. So it's reviewing what you've done, right? In a space where you're not doing it at that point in time, so you can more emotionally, disconnect, more objectively look at what you're doing. And then there's the study element, which is generating a better understanding for the game, and also studying other sources of information from the game, which might be looking at other player POVs or whatever it might be, which allows you to find greater inspiration, allows you to find what is the next thing that you need to focus on to really improve your game. Where is the next best bang for buck when it comes to the investment of time for the result that you're going to get as an improvement to your game? Because to improve at games are very complex things. There's lots of shit going on all over the place, and so you need to kind of break it down. At least this is my approach. I like to break everything down so that you can work on specific things, and then you put everything together as the whole when you actually play the match, right? It's like a guy shooting thousands and thousands of 3 throws every night. That's not the only thing that you do in basketball, but when it comes time to game time, that plus all the other stuff he's done with his team, with his coaches, and everything else, it all comes together for the actual match day. So it leads into my other 3 pillars, which is where all my videos come from, basically. And I'm going to start basically labeling my videos as such. There's 3 pillars, I would say, for sports performance: psychology, execution, and mechanics, and decision making. Those are the 3 pillars. If you're going to break, if you break everything down, those are the three branches, essentially, or 3 trunks, or whatever the hell you might want to define it as. I think pillars is, I'm just use the word pillars. So it allows you to in thinking in this way, it allows you to always have something to work on. So you're kind of setting yourself up to succeed. The greatest frustration and the greatest negativity with how you perceive the game can come from, for many people in the position of people who like to watch this content, is not understanding where their improvement is or where the next goal is, because they're unable to small chunk it because they haven't broken it down for there to be any small chunks to attack. And so that's something that could help you. It's something that helps me. I always am inspired. I can always find inspiration. And that's something that's very important, finding inspiration. Inspiration is one of the things that is at the root of motivation. What inspires you? What do you want to try that's different? What do you want to? What is a player that inspires you, the way that he plays? It all gives you. Because, okay, look at it like this, for example. If you find a guy who plays the game, let's say in CS it's Device, or let's say in Overwatch it's ddktv or whatever, you find out about that player, you like what they do. So you look at it more and you start to find out that they're really good. Device is really good with an AWP. Okay, that's one cool thing. It's I want to be really good at an AWP. But actually he's really good at playing certain spots on certain maps. Okay, you've broken it down a bit further. Okay, how does he do that? How do other players do that? Now I've found more inspiration from that perspective. He's really good at aggressive warping. Okay, what does that take? What is that entire journey about? You break it down and there's just so many fun. That's all super fun to me. Learning to do all those little things, that's super fucking fun because there's so many complexities and variables going on there. So to me, that's how I would have fun with the game. I don't know if that's going to apply to everybody, but that could be a starting point for many of you who start to lose the fun for the game. And again, dealing with losing is all about finding creating ways to find the game fun. And it is about the good mental practices as well. And speaking of which, let's talk about one of the mental practices which ties into the question as well. which I haven't talked about just yet. Blaming people. So blaming people is one of the most negative things you can do for not only the other people and your chances to win, but yourself as well. So let's look at it like this. If you blame somebody on your team, let's say it's Overwatch, right? Which is by definition almost a clusterfuck of 12 people. That's what Overwatch is. It's a clusterfuck of 12 people. So for you to be able to almost have the arrogance to suggest that because you didn't get healed that one time, or because you saw this guy fuck up that ultimate that one time, or because this guy did this or that guy did that those one things, or those simple individual moments from those players actually really define the outcome. Even if you're right, it's completely retarded to try to assert that, because it doesn't matter. You're only going to end up putting other people in a more negative emotional state. And not only that, this is the worst thing, because it hurts you the most. And I'll explain why. When you blame somebody, in your brain, that's it. That is the reason why you lost. You just close the fucking book on why you lost. In your brain, you close the book. That chapter, everything that's done, it's written, the email's been sent. You can't take it back. Like everything, it's just you close the book. Because when you blame somebody, you're basically saying it wasn't my fault. You're not asking yourself, what could I have done better? What was I trying to achieve? All these kinds of things. And instead you just literally just close the book on it. And that is really bad for your creative process, because everything should be an exercise in what could I have done better? People tend to blame other people because what they want to do is firstly to let everybody know that it's not their fault that they lost. It's like an ego protective mechanism almost, if it, as it were. And also it's basically, so ego, it protects your ego. And come on, Dan, come on. You had something intelligent to say, I'm sure of it. Or maybe it wasn't so intelligent. Let's see if I can remember this. It'll probably come back to me. So either way, it basically affects your creative process massively. You need to always have your mind open. You can never close the book. Always keep your mind open to all of the possibilities. And also, it creates a more positive mental state for you to be in at all times, which is, again, we talked about it earlier, how important it is to try to maintain positive mental states. That really helps you, and it helps the people around you play. And you have to also recognize that as much as you feel like an authority as well on the game, and how someone said something retarded, and that honestly can tilt me off the face of the planet sometimes when people try to rationalize what they're doing when they don't understand the game, or they have very poor logic in doing so, and it's very clear, and you could argue with them. You have to just let that stuff go, because it's not productive in having a positive mental state for yourself. And generally speaking, you also have to acknowledge that you don't necessarily have all the answers yourself. You have to be of that mind, because that allows you to grow better. It allows you to have a better ability to take information in, as opposed to shutting the book, because it's very easy to get into that mindset. And it's one of those things which you need to kind of, again, going back to the sensitivity argument, it's one of those things where you start to realize you might not be in the best mindset to actually play if you're, having all these negative outbursts in that sense. So blaming people is a very bad mental practice. So don't do that. So I think I more or less covered the majority of things here as far as dealing with losing goes. And it mostly comes down to a mixture of just handling your emotional states and becoming more sensitive. There is not really an easy answer to it, and you have to find out really what works for you. But I hope that maybe I gave you some source of inspiration, or perhaps you listen to this as a podcast and there was a few tidbits there for you as well, if you're driving along or whatever you're doing. I know some people like to do that. They like to listen to these as podcast type materials, which I think is probably quite wise, considering it's just like a static shot here, nothing much going on. Maybe I could add an overlay, I don't know. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that it was in some way useful for you. I did address or talk about some things I haven't mentioned before, so that's cool. And I have a lot more content like this that I want to do. I've got a big list of stuff on psychology. Loads of people keep asking me about it. And if you ever have any questions for me, please throw them at me, because answering questions is great. Like I had one on stream about slumps. I think that's amazing. Like a question about slumps is fucking amazing, because slumps are very interesting. It's a fascinating occurrence, and I definitely have a lot of ideas about slumps, and so it's cool to generate discussion around that. So that's on the list too. So there you go. I guess I'll see you for the next one.